Hey there kids, it's your good buddy Uncle Ben Eller here reporting from lovely Sweetwater Studios. I'm joined once again by my dear friend from across the pond. It's Mr. Nick Bowcott. How are you doing today, Nick?
I'm well, thanks for having me again.
It's wonderful to be here. Last year we brought you guys the best riffs of the 80s UK versus USA edition.
Yep.
And in 2022, we're peeling it back another decade and going all the way back to the 70s to bring you guys the greatest riffs of the 70s.
In our humble opinion, so Ben chose 10, I chose 10, and because I'm so darned old, I actually learnt guitar during the 70s, so my approach might be different to Ben's because I could pick a very different top 10 now than I would back then, so I went back to me as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old, learning how to play and going, what riffs that were written in that era impacted me the most during that time. So that's how I picked them from my youth, so 18, like 3 or 4 years ago, something like that.
That's rad. I took a different approach indeed because I wasn't alive during the 70s. I went to a medium. We did a past life regression. I found out what my favorite riffs were in my past life in the 70s.
So they're all disco funk?
They're all disco hits.
Perfect.
So, yeah, personal opinion here. I'm sure we left your favorites out, so be sure to let us know about your favorite riffs from the 70s down there in the comments section below. I'll tell you what, how about we give the advantage to you and you kick this off with one of your favorite riffs.
Age before Judy, right?
That's right.
Age
Judy?
Before beauty. Or duty. Age before duty. Whatever.
Judy?
Yeah.
Is there a Judy in here? What's going on?
Anyway, so my first riff that I chose from my 10, which were really hard to choose, by the way. I could easily choose 20 or 30 or 40 and they'd probably change tomorrow, but these are the riffs today. When I first started out playing out, I wanted to impress my friends, I gotta be honest, and I want to impress girls as well.
Like you do, of course.
Yeah. So I could play All Right Now, I could play most of the AC/DC first album, great stuff by the way. I could play Jailbreak, I could even play Black Knight by Deep Purple, but it wasn't until I learnt this riff that people went, oh, you can play guitar. And this is from 1970, so it just peels in from some guy called Eric Clapton.
I've heard of the guy, yeah.
He called himself Derek, had a band called the Dominos. This is the riff that made me look quite legit in the eyes of some of my friends. And hopefully some ladies too, but who knows? Aside from my mum, of course.
Most importantly. Oh!
It's just classic.
It's hard to top that one, man.
It's a good start.
Legendary indeed. That's a great choice. You had a lot to choose from that record, too. There's some heavy hitters on there.
But this was the one that everyone knew.
That's the one.
And it's got that diddle 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 there, which makes you sound fancy.
It does.
It's open strings. It's great. Hammer and pull-offs to open strings. Love it.
Classic combination.
So over to you, my friend.
I'm going to take you over here to the United States. I'm not going to take you just here. I'm going to take you way down south to Tejas to visit, I believe, a dear friend of yours. I've heard that you know this guitar player.
This Reverend F. Billy?
William Gibbons?
Yeah.
From a little band called Zigzag Top, right?
Yeah.
How do you narrow it down? How do you choose one Billy Gibbons
Almost impossible.
riff? Yeah, really. I had a bunch on my list that could have made it. I went with the one that was just the one that made me go, God, I wish I would have written that riff. And obviously it's a hit because, I mean, Bonamassa has done a cover of it. Mastodon's done a cover of it. Tons of bands have done this one. I think you know what it is. Oh!
Just so greasy.
Greasy. Yep. That's a good one right there, man.
Yeah, that's Billy. And he uses those ridiculously light strings like Iomi and sounds huge.
I don't get it. Yeah.
7 to 38.
I don't understand it. I don't understand it. That's the man.
Yep.
The legend.
It's not just the peso, it's the Gibbons head, the Gibbons heart, the Gibbons hands. They all
I have none of the above,
yeah,
but
they
I
all
can try.
play a role. And that beard, I think, as well.
Yeah, I don't have that either.
No. So I guess it's back to me, right?
That's right.
So the next riff is from a band whose guitar player still has hair like I used to have, a big curly mop. He has a degree in astrophysics. His name is Brian May. The band is Queen. In 1974, they released an album called Sheer Heart Attack. And there was a song on it called Now I'm Here. And there's a riff just before the verse starts that's just,
Choice.
like you said, one of those ones you wish you wrote. So I sat down for ages, breaking records by dropping needles on them, trying to learn this sucker. And this is my best attempt at being Brian May, minus a fireplace guitar. So this is the riff I'm talking about from Now I'm Here. Shit, no, it's not.
Woo!
Just beautiful, man.
That's a spicy one.
Yeah.
That's a great one. And again, it's like, how many riffs could you have chosen there?
Yeah, you could have done the one, the hard rock one from Bohemian Rhapsody that everyone knows and
Legendary,
loves.
yeah.
That one just grabbed me, and it still does. And it's a little bit on the tricky side.
Yeah.
The fact he's friends with Iommi and the late great Mr. Van Halen, and they both think very highly of him, kind of says it all, really.
Kind of says it all. So, yeah, it does.
Yeah. And that solo in Bohemian Rhapsody is one of the all-time classics in my humble
Absolutely.
opinion.
Top 10, easily.
Unparalleled.
That's right, man. That's right.
Good stuff.
Great choice.
Back to you.
Okay, so in the 1970s, we had this big like prog rock explosion. Bands like Rush and Yes, King Crimson, all that stuff. One of the greatest examples of that in the American scene was, of course, Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
They had a handful of great tunes with a handful of super sick riffs. Wayward Son's the one that comes to mind. Now, here's the thing. I easily could have gone with The One. But I think the riff in that tune that makes my big toe shoot up in my boot the most is that like bridge riff that kind of goes into that really funky like upbeat riff that's behind the solo.
Yeah.
That's the best part of the song to me. So that's the one that I chose for my list. Let's see if I can not mess it up.
Well played, that man. But yeah, that's the one that makes both my toes go up, actually. It's
Straight up.
brutal.
It's so fun to play, man. That's a great one.
Yeah,
Love that stuff.
Blue pill for the toes.
Yeah, that's
there.
right.
So, back to me for number 3. Now, the very first concert I ever went to was a band called Budgie. I think I mentioned this in the 80s riffs.
Yeah.
And they were so loud, I nearly got hit by a truck afterwards. And as a result of that concert, I bought an album called Bandolier. But even though that record's full of amazing riffs, I'm going back to a song called In for the Kill, because that was the reason I went to see them in the first place. And Metallica have done the world a bunch of favors. And then, of course, they've introduced a lot of people to Diamond Head and Budgie via Bread Fan. So this is another Budgie riff that you might not have heard. This is called In for the Kill. It's the title track of an album from 1974, and it is a proverbial barnstormer. So here he goes. Or something
nasty.
like that. It's just chromatic brilliance, and it's catchy.
That's
and
awesome.
And that little scatty thing that matches the voice.
Oh, okay. I think you're like turning me into a fan of this band one riff at a time. I need to go home and do some research and check out more of their stuff, man.
Yeah, like Bandolier by itself.
Okay.
Just riff after riff after riff after riff. One of the most underrated bands of all time, in my opinion.
Well, I got some homework to do, it sounds like. I feel like G is underused in hard rock. Like, every Deep Purple song is in G.
Yep.
But, like, I feel like a lot of bands now don't use G for the hard rock stuff as much. And it's so fun whenever you do.
Do you know who does quite a lot, and most people don't get it, is Iommi, because he tunes down to C sharp, so when he plays G, a lot of people think it's E.
Touche.
Yeah. But anyway, back to you for your number 3.
All right, man. Now, I'll tell you what. I understand that back in the 1970s, there was quite a lot of gang activity in the cities. Now, I'm not interested in that. The only gang I'm interested in is a James gang. Right?
Brilliant. Brilliantly stupid. That was so stupid.
Thank you. I
It was
practiced.
great.
I was homeschooled, you know? Comes naturally. That riff in Funk 49, what can you say about it? It's like the dirtiest, nastiest guitarist groove. I like riffs from this era because they were so clearly written by hands on the guitar. Like, there's a lot of stuff in music now that I'm like, okay, you wrote that riff in Guitar Pro, then figured it out later.
Yeah.
You don't write riffs like Funk 49 unless you are manhandling that guitar yourself. See if I can do it halfway justice.
Yeah, groove and the percussive nature of the playing as well. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a hands-on riff. It ain't meat and potatoes, though. There's some spice in there.
Yeah, there's a little bit of flavor on it. It's got some taste on it.
It's got some
And just think about it this way. The next time you're writing a riff and you're like, oh, this isn't good enough. This was funk number 49. They had to do 48 other funks before they landed on that one. Some of us hit it early, Mambo number 5, only took 4 prototypes. That's pretty good. This took 48 attempts.
Blur did well with song number 1 then. That
There
was
you go.
equally stupid and awful, but anyway.
There it is. Wee-hoo.
Wee-hoo, indeed, yeah. Anyway, back to Britain, 1975. Now, a lot of you guys will have never heard of this guy. His name was Bill Nelson. Well, he's still alive, so his name is Bill Nelson. His band was called Bebop Deluxe, and my first real guitar was an SG-2000, which is this British flag thing right here that I used on the See You in Hell album and the video. And I bought it because he used one. That's how big of an influence he was on me.
Wow.
Like I said, not a lot of people this side of the pond have heard of him, but a guy called Joe Bonamassa has. In fact, I recently read an article where Joe was talking about like grossly underrated people, and he mentioned not only Bill Nelson and Bebop Deluxe, but the song I'm about to play.
Oh.
And this was one of these riffs that's so 2 chords in the pentatonic scale, and it's magic. So this is called Sister Seagull. It was from an album called Futurama. Check it out. The guy is just tasteful and very influential, even though you might never have heard of him. And this is the riff, Sister Seagull.
Oh, that's a sassy one, man.
Yeah, it's brilliantly, simply brilliant.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
I think so.
Yeah,
Made
brilliantly,
sense to me.
simply brilliant. Yeah.
But all those like little pentatonic, just little flurries, like those are essential things that everybody should learn on guitar anyway.
And that's almost an Ace Frehley riff, actually.
Almost.
It's almost a lick, rather, I should say. It's almost an Ace
man.
lick. But it's, worth... So check out Bill Nelson. There's an album called Live in the Air Age. It's stunningly good.
I gotta check it out, man. Speaking of Ace Frehley, I'm gonna take my next selection here to a little American rock band that made
what a segue.
a small dent in the music scene called Kiss.
Yeah.
Maybe you've heard of them.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Now, of course, it's like how do you choose a Kiss riff? It's like every song is just a collection of wicked riffs that you wish you would have written, but this is the one that I chose for my list because like if I pick up like a Les Paul or something, I want to test it out by hitting it with this riff. It's so goofy and trashy, and it has those nasty little bends in it and stuff.
Those little off bends are just great.
So I had to put this riff on here just because it's my go-to test it out kind of riff.
Works
See what
for
it
me.
sounds like. Let's put some taste on it. Trashy. It's a masterpiece. Let's call it a trashterpiece.
Yeah, it's great. And that, like you said, that bend from F sharp to G to make the open G5, it just has that sass.
It does, man. Trashy.
Right, back to me and my side of the pond. And I'm going to go with a band who are still around today. They just celebrated 50 years a couple of years ago. Judas Priest. And this is a song called Victim of Changes from Sad Rings of Destiny, which came out in 1976. I first got into it when Unleashed in Yeast came out a few years later in 79. And this is just one of those riffs that you have to learn and keep. And I'm not playing it exactly the same as them, but it's as close as I could get. Because when I was learning, you had to listen to the record, use your ears. There were no tab books, no internets, no YouTubes, nothing like that. But what I did do is I went to see the band as often as I could.
Yeah.
And I would get as close to the stage as I could, and I would watch Glenn and KK like a hawk, especially on the songs I was trying to master.
Yeah.
This is my best attempt at one of the all-time great riffs from one of the all-time great heavy metal bands, the Priest, the mighty Priest. So here it goes. A little bit scrappy, but
nasty,
that was
man.
close enough for rock and roll.
That's sick. And I love like all the like just blues scale walk downs. They call it the blues scale, but let's be honest, it's the metal scale.
It's the metal scale.
It's the metal scale.
Especially that run at the end. And I know I'm playing that right because, once again, before the internet, I did a Guitar World piece on Priest riffs with KK and Glenn.
Oh.
And KK actually faxed me from Italy that run because I wanted to make sure I got it right.
That's
so I
rad.
have it at home in his little chicken scratch tab.
Yeah.
And I'm not selling it.
Authenticated.
I'm keeping it. Yeah, authenticated from Mighty KK.
That's amazing.
What a
man.
pair of gents. What a great man.
And what a riff. That's a sledgehammer of a riff, man.
Brutal. And they're still playing it with intent today. You know, Richie Faulkner's delivering the
Yeah.
goods as only he can. Bad pun intended. And talking of delivering the goods, over to you for your
All
next
right, man. Okay, so in 1978, the entire world of guitar was forever changed by the debut album from Van Halen, of course. Okay, so is Van Halen a USA band, considering Eddie and Alex were born?
Dutch. Yeah, they're Dutch, aren't they?
Yeah, so it's like, is this an American band? In my opinion, I don't think there's anything more American
No. I
than
would
someone
agree with
coming
you.
from somewhere else, landing in this melting pot of a country, as many of our ancestors did, and creating something special for themselves, as the Van Halens did. So in my opinion, it's hard to get more American than Van
Yep,
Halen.
I would agree. 110% American.
Right?
Actually. Yeah.
So they squeaked in 78 with the debut album. 79 they had Van Halen 2. How do you choose one riff from that? How do you choose a single riff? Like
It's
every
hard.
song is a legendary riff. So I went with one that like is a little bit more of a B-side, but it's one of my absolute favorite tunes. So maybe this is your first time hearing this track. It's on Van Halen 2, D.O.A, Dead or Alive. I mean, come on.
No, it's brilliant.
It's
brilliant.
freaking awesome, man. So let's have a swing at it.
It's another hands-on guitar riff, isn't it?
You just want to beat it with your fist. You just want to beat it with your fist when you play that riff. If you were choosing a Van Halen riff, what would be the one that you chose from one or two? It's how do you narrow it down?
You can't. It depends what day it is
Right?
and what I've just eaten.
Yeah.
Or watched on TV because they're all great.
I almost put that bridge riff from Feel Your Love Tonight.
Yeah.
I love that riff so much.
And there's a middle of On Fire. There's so many. There's so many. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
we
just
could do a video.
throw a dart
on-
at a board.
You could do 10 riffs from 3 songs.
Yeah.
And still have room for more.
Absolutely
with that
so.
band.
Yeah,
Classic.
we're kind of limiting it to one riff per band. Otherwise, my entire list just would have been, every riff from Van Halen 1 and 2. That's it. What
Yeah,
else do you
I'm
need?
tempted to go, well, I had this and this and this, and like 8 riffs later ago, and this is the one I chose. So
Yeah,
I'm resisting
same.
that temptation. It's really hard. And that was the halfway stage, so
Yeah.
5 apiece.
All right.
And you just played a riff in F sharp.
I
and
did.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
One of the most rockin' keys.
Oh, totally. There was this guy called Richie Blackmore.
I've heard of the guy. Yeah.
Deep Purple, Rainbow, legendary figure, huge hero of mine. And the first album I bought by Deep Purple was actually Burn. So I'm considered sacrilegious by some because I prefer the Coverdale version of Deep Purple because that's what I grew up with.
You just outed yourself on the internet, dude. Everybody knows now.
Yeah, and my favorite live album is Made in Europe, not Made in Japan.
It's kind of hard to fault
But the Gillan version is amazing too. As it's Made in Japan, it's legendary, but I just like the Coverdale-Hughes combination. The title track, Burn, is a great riff, but there's one that not a lot of people, well, say not a lot of people, not as many people know this riff as know Burn. In fact, what was funny is when I started working with Kirk Hammett on his column, it was during the huge, ginormous Black tour, Black Album tour, where they played every place with electricity 3 times. So it's like a 3-year tour. And I went to see them halfway through it, and during his solo spot, he played little segments of this.
Oh, sick.
And I went, that was cool, you quoted that. He went, shh, no one knows, it's not
Nobody
mine.
knows. Yeah, so, keep it secret.
Sorry, Kirk, just blew it for you. This is a song called Mistreated, and it's got, like, the vocal on it is epic, and it's very, very Blackmore, it should be played with a Strat with less distortion, but I've got a Les Paul and more distortion, and it's all good. So here we go. Something like that.
That's a nasty one, man.
And in fact, at the Marshall 50th anniversary show, which I was honoured to play with Zakk Wylde on a Black Sabbath song, Into the Void, which I nearly chose but didn't, as you'll find out in a minute, Mr. Malmsteen and Glenn Hughes did Mistreated and
sick. I bet that was insane.
Brought the place down because Yngwie's feel, a lot of people go, he just plays fast. No, that guy has soul.
Oh man, absolutely.
Soul for days, and he crushed that. It was just really moving.
That's one of his heroes and stuff too, so it makes sense he'd do it on her, right?
White Strat Marshalls, great singer, great guitar playing, And
that riff's what I'm talking about. Like, that's a riff that could only be written on guitar, with the guitar in your hands. All those silky little bends and stuff. You didn't write that on a keyboard.
No. Or on Tab Pro, as you said.
Nope.
We'll bend that slightly sharp, and some of my bends were slightly more bluesy than Blackmore's because he's really, really good, and I'm not. But anyway, back to you on that point.
Man, one of the bands from the 70s that I grew up listening to because of my parents was the Doobie Brothers. Oh. And of course, depending on what era of the Doobie Brothers you're familiar with, you might be thinking of the Michael McDonald.
What a voice.
I nailed it. That sounds just like him. Yeah. You might be familiar with that era, but some of the 70s stuff had some really great rockin' riffs on it, like China Grove. That's the one that I chose for myself. I have so many good memories of listening to that Best of Doobie Brothers CD that has the jukebox thing on the front of it. Yep. We used to listen to that all the time while we were cooking dinner and stuff. So this is one of those ones that takes me back. And I love this riff, and I love the tone. To me, that's ubiquitous, perfect 70s tone. It's got a nice amount of reverb on it. Right. Just a bright, crispy Marshall kind of. I don't know if they used a Marshall, but that's what it sounds like. Right. See if I can do it some justice.
Oh, you did that justice. I'm hungry now.
Oh, yeah?
It sounds like dinner time.
Okay, there you go. Mom's calling.
Now, did she cook something special when she was listening to the album, or was just whatever?
Weren't they all special meals?
Well said, that man.
Brownie points. Trying to win the brownie points.
Yeah, brown something.
Something to do. I love that riff, though, man. Yeah. It's such a good rockin' riff. That whole song is great, too.
And if you're a metalhead and you haven't listened to the album he's just talked about, do yourself a favor. Fix that, because you're doing yourself an injustice. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, almost put this guy on there.
What I'd have chosen,
right? Yeah. How do you narrow it down?
You can't.
Such good stuff.
But you had to.
I had to. I was forced to.
Yep. And talking of narrowing it down, this next one was really, really hard. It's going to involve some digital magic because I have to do a guitar change. So That was Digital Magic done.
Biddle-a-doop.
Tony Iommi signature Monkey SG Special.
Rad.
With the monkey on. So monkey playing, monkey on guitar as well.
Monkey see, monkey do, okay.
Yeah. Black Sabbath, what can you say apart from thank you?
Yeah, that's it.
So when trying to choose a riff, one of the ones I just mentioned, the fact I had the honor of playing Into the Void with Zach, and that's one of those riffs. Complete with feedback, hurrah.
Rock and roll, man.
It's great, man.
That riff, you speed it up, it's a Slayer riff. You
Yeah.
play it with a swing on it, that's a Pantera riff.
Yeah.
But
No,
at
you're
its
right.
heart, it's a freaking Black Sabbath riff.
And then, of course, the Symptom, which, as I said, I used to play in E and then realized he's playing it on a C-sharp guitar.
Right.
So he's actually playing G, so it's... I mean, that's just nasty.
The most metal riff, dude.
Nasty, nasty, nasty. In fact, I was reading a Diamond Head interview recently, and they came up with Am I Evil trying to top that in the heaviness scale.
Really?
Yeah.
That was like the point of reference.
That was their benchmark. But once again, I've got to go back to me as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid. The first Black Sabbath album I bought was Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Yeah.
And there's a riff on that song. Some people refer to it as the third verse riff. My friends at school just said, you've got to buy the album just for the fuzz riff. They called it the fuzz riff.
Nice.
So I'm going to play the fuzz riff to the best of my ability on this C-sharp guitar. And
Killer.
This is why Iommi, as Rob Zombie said it best, the reason there are no more good heavy metal riffs is because Tony Iommi wrote them all already.
Took them all. Yeah.
So here we go. Just
disgusting,
nastily beautiful with a major and minor third in
That's
there.
what I was gonna say.
Got that walk again.
That interchange in there of like, is it aggressive? Is it happy? Is it major? Is it minor? It's freaking awesome. Is what it is, man.
But what makes it great is that the note that should sound happy sounds like Satan commanded that should be played at that point.
Right.
Because that major thirds, that G sharp sounds just,
yeah, man.
Gorgeous. So,
Slayer does that too, and so does Megadeth. It's like using that major third all the time, but making it sound mean and evil.
Yeah. You look at those who look up to him and it speaks volumes. From Edward through Dime.
Yeah.
They both rest in peace. They considered him to be, a lot of people refer to him as the Godfather.
Yeah.
Because he is. And I've had the honor of interviewing him and doing a column with him. And he's such a nice, softly spoken, polite chap.
Wow.
It's like, where did that come from?
Yeah, yeah.
And there's some...
He gets all the evil out in the riffs.
Yeah, and God bless him for that, because he's done the world could you imagine a world without Black Sabbath?
No.
I couldn't. It would suck.
It'd be completely different.
It would be awful.
Completely different.
So those four chaps, well done.
Hats off.
From Birmingham, hurrah.
nice.
Rule Britannia. Anyway, back to you, my friend.
Okay, man. So again, making this list, I agonized over it because there's just so many bands to choose from this era and the American kind of classic rock scene. Aerosmith can't be ignored.
Nope.
What a guitar duo we're talking about right there. And in my opinion, Joe Perry is one of the hardest players to emulate of anybody. People don't talk about this enough. I feel like people talk about how hard it is to emulate guys like Mark Knopfler and Dave Gilmour, but try to play a Joe Perry solo and make it sound just like Joe. Let me know how that goes. He is so hard to imitate.
It's that swagger thing again.
It's that swagger thing.
He's a hands-on guy once again. And talking of underrated guitar players, Brad Whitford.
Also,
wow.
absolutely so, man.
Wow.
Yep, quite a duo there. So it was hard to pick one riff from these guys off of the classic 70s stuff, but the kind of verse to break riff in Sweet Emotion is the one that kind of gets the best to me. That's one of those riffs I wanted to learn as soon as I started playing guitar.
Right.
So I had to include that one on my list for personal reasons.
Beautiful.
Nothing fancy about it, but God, it just rocks. grooves, man.
And hard to nail that groove, like you said.
Yeah,
They're-
yeah.
Aerosmith, to a degree, remind me of AC/DC. Everyone thinks it's easy until they try and play it and then match the record. It's
That's
like,
right.
Oh, you're not quite there.
But we can try.
Yep.
We can try.
Yep, we certainly can. So I'm going to do another guitar change via Digital Magic. So back to Britain with the guitar change. 1975. An album called Physical Graffiti. A monstrous record.
So good.
So many great riffs, and it would be criminal of me as an English person not to include Mr. Page in the top 10 greatest riffs of mine today. And this is a song called The Rover, and the way it kicks off, it's kind of like the perfect riff sandwich. It starts off really heavy and then just gets better and then goes to that wonderful chord thing. So I'm going to try and play that to the best of my ability. Apologies, Mr. Page, because there's another guy who's really hard to copy.
Yes, to make it sound exactly like that.
He's got that vibe, and him with Mr. Bonham and Mr. Jones and that Plant chap together. Man. Don't you dare try and grid their stuff. It's gotta flow the way they flowed.
Like crazy.
It's beautiful.
Yep.
Just magic.
Perfect
feel.
Imperfection.
Yeah. The human touch.
The human touch. There you go.
So here goes The Rover. This will probably be about take 518, but you'll think it's number one.
Well played, sir.
A little bit funky at the end, but that was the human feel.
There you go, man.
Yeah,
Sounds
what a great riff. What a great riff.
It's rubbery. It's goopy. Like, again, you're not writing that unless you're holding a Les Paul or a Telly standing in front of a wall of Marshalls.
And those little half-step bends that just float into the note, like what Dime called hick bends.
It's just drunk sound. It's one of those riffs that sounds drunk. It's awesome.
But it never falls over.
Somehow.
Yeah,
it weebles, it wobbles,
but it never falls down.
I don't envy you having to choose a Page riff. Like, I was thinking about this myself. Like, if I was doing the UK riffs, like, God, which one would I choose? Yeah. I was kind of thinking about this guy right here. How do you write a riff that freaking good?
And then do it again. Completely different and just as good, if not better. Yeah, him and Iommi, man.
They didn't leave any riffs for any of us.
They sold their souls many times over.
I'd say worth it.
Oh, yeah.
For riffs like that, I'm going to say worth it.
God bless them. God bless them. So once again, Mr. Page, thank you.
Great choice, man. I love that one, too. That riff is one of my all-time favorites. All right, Nick, let me ask you, what do you know about the Sisters Wilson?
I know they like Aggressive Fish.
Okay, yeah.
And Mr. Inez plays with them on occasions as well.
That's right. We're talking about
arguably the nicest bass player on the planet.
No doubt.
The only man who's ever been seen in front of a stadium crowd smiling while playing Effing Hostile.
Come on.
Yeah, he stands alone, man.
That's sweet.
Mike just loves life.
Super cool.
And who doesn't love Mike?
And who doesn't love Heart?
Oh, yeah. And I think I know where you're going with this
Some riffs with this one, dude. Now, we're metal guys through and through, but you got to be quite the riff smith to write a gallop riff that, like, your mom and grandma can still enjoy.
Yep.
You know?
And they did.
With a Barracuda. I love the main riff, and I also love the little, like, it's like the variation in it that's in 7, like, towards the end of the song. Right. So cool. It's like you never really notice that it's complicated because the groove is so good, but I love that little variation they threw in there.
Have you seen the footage of them playing it with the Alice in Chains boys?
No.
Oh, it's great. YouTube it. It's great.
Oh, I got to check that out.
Yeah, Jerry on Fire. It was great.
Dang. All right, let's check out Barracuda. That's a chunky one.
That is nicely done as well.
That's a chunky one, man. Have you heard the stuff of the Wilson sisters doing Led Zeppelin tunes?
No, but I can only imagine.
Oh my God. Dude, you have to listen to this stuff. Them doing like Battle of Evermore together, just the two sisters. Every time I get chills.
I bet.
Like, I would give anything for a full recorded album of them just doing their Zeppelin tunes. It's phenomenal. You wouldn't believe it.
No, I'm up for that one.
Yeah. Y'all watching this on YouTube, just look it up. Just look up, Heart, Led Zeppelin. You'll be blown away.
And that's what I'm going to do right after this video, actually.
There you go, man. Back to you, sir.
Yep, so this is number 9 out of 10.
Winding
and
down.
I might get some flack for this because I got some flack for using Thin Lizzy, which I've painfully avoided on this one, even though Brian Robinson is Scottish. The reason I did it in the 80s was because John Sykes is English, darn it. But anyway, this next band are English, one of England's greatest hard rock, commercially successful, catchy rock, but maniacs. They're called UFO.
Oh, yeah.
And
okay.
in 1974, they put out an album called Phenomenon, and they had a 20-year-old German guitar player called Michael, whose brother Rudolph plays in the Scorpions. And there's this riff. I got into this riff a little later because I got into it when the live album came out in 79, I think it was. It's called Strangers of the Night, recorded in Chicago in this fine land. And this is England with a touch of Germany. This is called Rock Bottom. And it's just one of those riffs you have to have in your riff belt because it's a great bullet to have. And there you have it. So that's my number 9. So Mr. Schenker, who's still going, by the way, his new album is excellent. He's just got tone for days, uses a cocked wah brilliantly. His leads are tasty, and he doesn't use his pinky.
He's a 3-finger guy, isn't he?
Yeah, and he does it well.
Oh, he doesn't need it.
The exception to the rule.
He might become too powerful if he started using that one.
Well, could you imagine him with an extra digit? Frightening. But anyway, back to you, sir.
All right, man. We're going to talk about some Boston right here because the debut Boston record is one of the greatest albums of all time. I'm not even going to say classic rock or rock albums. I think it's one of the best records ever made, and it's all due to the absolute genius of Tom Scholz.
Yep.
That guy, man, like, people don't even know how far his waters go, how deep his waters go. The guy is an absolute genius. Look up some of the stories about this stuff. Because, like, when you hear, like, oh, he built the studio they recorded their first album in, he didn't order pieces from Sweetwater. He literally built it, built the components, built the amp, like, all kinds of technology. He just made it up. And that's where that record came from.
Well, just look at the Rockman.
I know, right?
You know, that's a big part of the Def Leppard sound for quite
All
a
of it.
while.
Yep.
And the reason being, it's brilliant at what it does.
That's right, man.
Flawless.
Yep. And Tom Scholz, man, what a riff maker.
Oh.
You could do More Than a Feeling, obviously, is one that's hard not to put that on there. But the one that I chose is that intro riff from Peace of Mind. It starts off with kind of like the clean tone, like acoustic kind of thing.
Yeah.
Then that great solo over the top of it. I love that riff, man. It's a great intro to a tune.
Yep.
Tasty one. That's a great riff, man.
And timeless.
I heard, and I need to do some research on this, so maybe you know or somebody else out there can research it here. From what I understand, Tom had only been playing guitar for about 5 years when he wrote all of those songs.
I hadn't heard that before, and
I believe it coming from him, though.
Gobsmacked. That's amazing.
Yeah, 5
That's
years.
amazing. But hey, he built a studio from Resistors up, so
Yeah,
I'm sure he can learn guitar.
I believe it.
He's the guy who, obviously, when he grabs something, he takes it and doesn't let go. Relentless.
Absolutely so. Killer stuff, man. Number 10 for you, sir.
Yep. Okay, for my last song, this was actually a hit in England. It was on Top of the Pops, it was on the radio, and it made me, as a kid who wasn't playing guitar yet, want to play guitar. It's since been covered by Guns N' Roses really well. It's one of the ultimate cowbell songs.
More cowbell.
Oh yeah, none more in this case. Released in 74, it was the title track of the album Hair of the Dog, and it's this bad boy here. And Manny Charlton passed away recently. He was the riff writer behind this, great guitar player, just a great band, Nazareth. So this is to you, my friend. Well, I never met him, but this is in honor of Manny Charlton. This is a great riff, Hair of the Dog.
Yeah, man. Oh, man.
Oh,
Now
pinch
you're messing-
harmonics, yeah, sort of shameless, gratuitous pinch harmonics thrown in that weren't there, but that's what the riff brings. I just love playing that riff. It's
Well, now
sassy
you're
again.
messing with the son of a riff.
Yeah, well done, that man. So over to you for your last
Okay,
one.
my number 10. Weirdly enough, you wrapped yours up with the cowbell riff. I'm also doing that. Another cowbell riff.
This is how I know what it is.
This is a learning experience for me. I thought this band was from the UK, but Blue Oyster Cult is an American band.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Homeschooling, it doesn't teach you everything. Don't Fear the Reaper. Come on, man.
Yeah, it's timeless again.
Absolutely amazing. Of course, you know, everybody knows it from the SNL skit, yada yada. I think about John Carpenter's Immortal Halloween and how it was used in the soundtrack of that. So it's like forever bonded to me in fondness. Fondly bonded. That riff from Don't Fear the Reaper. I'm not quite clean enough to play this, so I'll just try to roll it back down here a little bit, see if I can get a reasonable clean tone. Beautiful riff. I love that bridge section too, and it goes to the really spooky. It's like a real twist in the song, but it's so spooky. It fits.
It fits. And they're talking of underrated guitar players. Buck Dahmer.
Oh man, super
What
underrated.
An amazing guitar player. Riff writer as well. They were just a great band.
He was playing those like headless Steinberger guitars like 40 years before all these like young people are playing headless guitars too. He was kind of ahead of the curve there.
Yep, I hear you.
Awesome
So anyway,
player.
this is the slight wrinkle in this. We both decided, being this was such a wide choice, that we could each choose a wild card one from our countries, and then I could choose one from this side of the pond, and Ben could choose one from good old Britain. So
All right.
I'm going to play my wild card, and this is the reason I didn't put this in the main one. This was a huge influence on me, but no one's ever heard of the band over here. Very few people in England heard of them. They were called Crawler. Paul Kossoff from Free had a band called Backstreet Crawler. When Paul passed away, it became Crawler. They hired an unknown guitar player called Jeff Whitehorn, who since has become a great friend of mine. He did Marshall demos for many years, went on to play with Paul Rodgers, went on to play with Bad Company, played with Roger Waters even.
Wow.
He's that good.
Dang.
Now he's in Procol Harum, which means he's standing in for Robin Trower. This is a great guitar player, a great guy, and they had this song called How Will You Break My Heart that was on an album called Snake, Rattle and Roll that came out in 79. And this just moves me to this day. It's in the saddest of all keys, D minor.
D minor.
And it's just a sassy pentatonic descent in D minor. So this is what it sounds like. Jeff, thank you, and I apologize for bastardizing your riff, but this is my best recollection of this great song.
Tasty.
Like it. So Jeff, thank you, and now for your wild card.
Nice, man. Okay, so my wild card, I'm going to give it up to the late, great central scrutinizer, the maestro himself, Frank Zappa, one of America's greatest musical treasures. I feel like a lot of people just know Frank for some of his, silly, funny songs he did later in his career, but the guy was an unbelievable guitar player, absolutely impossible to emulate, and wrote some of the dirtiest riffs ever.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, if you're into bands like Clutch and stuff like that and you think they have great riffs, listen to some Frank Zappa stuff. So similar. There's a lot of overlap. But that riff from Muffin Man, I think, is the dirtiest, filthiest riff ever. It's great if you got a big, nasty fuzz tone or something on there, but it's so simple, it's so dumb, and it's the best. Let's check out Muffin Man. Sweet simplicity.
It's brilliant, though. Brilliant.
I love that one.
It sticks with you. It
I love
sticks
that
with
one.
you.
All right, your crossover choice, sir.
So this was a tough one. I had two choices, and I nearly picked this one because my band with the first singer, Grim Reaper Paul, recovered this, and it's just a great sassy riff. It's from the Montrose album, which featured Sammy Hagar and Ronnie
heard of him.
Montrose.
Yeah.
May he rest in peace. What an influential but underrated guitar player.
Absolutely so.
This was called Rock Candy. I'm going to play a little bit of it, and then I'm going to play the riff I chose. But I'm going to play this out of respect to Ronnie, because I want to play it, damn it.
I almost
it's a
put it
really
on my list.
good riff.
It's such a good one. Ooh.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a
Beautiful.
guitar test riff.
It is.
For sure.
You kind of need that drum groove at
Yeah.
the start to really get it.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so this was a hard choice because there's a lot of great riffs from the 70s from this side of the pond, from Mr. Van Halen, all the way through to all the guys you've mentioned, Ace and Co. But there was a guy from Canada, Pat Travers.
Okay, yeah.
He brought an album out in 1979 called Making Magic. And the title track riff was just, it meant a lot to me then, and it means a lot to me now.
Killer.
And it's got that, once again, this is a hands-on thing because he does that beautiful percussive thing. So
Nice.
let me see if I can do Mr. Pat Travers justice.
That's a good one, man.
That's making magic indeed, in my humble opinion. So what's yours?
I like the muty, scratchy stuff in there too,
Me
man.
too.
So I'm glad you included Nazareth on your list because I included it as my across the pond wild card. The one that I went for on my list was the riff from Changing Times, which is just nasty. It's on the Hair of the Dog album.
Yes, it is.
It's just such a big dumb caveman of a riff. It's goofy, it's funky. I love this one. Sleazy.
Nice one. Nice
Sleazy one.
That concludes our choices for today. Like I said before, I'm sure my choices will be different tomorrow, and I'm sure yours would be as well.
Absolutely.
So like Ben said, comments below, folks. What did we miss? Maybe we should revisit this.
Maybe we do
later.
a part 2. We got a lot of requests to do the 80s part 2, so maybe that happens again. So yeah, let us know in the comments section what we missed, and be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications every time I upload a new slice of fried gold. And be on the lookout for all the other videos that we're doing together this week. We got a ton of fun plans and stuff, so be sure to keep an eye on my channel as well as the Sweetwater channel to catch even more of us being knuckleheads and trying to beat on these ropes a little bit.
And how do you sign out with stop clicking?
Yeah, it's close enough. Stop clicking,
Keep
I
clicking.
guess. Something like that.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here today with me, man.
Thank you for having me, my
A
friend.
pleasure as always, and thank you guys so much for watching. Let's clicking.
Or pick it.
That's the one.